So welcome to another episode of High Pressure Podcast with Ratermann Manufacturing. This is George Ratermann. And today, I'll tell you what, I don't know what's really for sure going to happen because I was told just to show up for the podcast that I host and that two people were going to end up interviewing me today. So I would like to introduce those two people. We have Marie Ratermann and we have Marie Ratermann, both of which work at Ratermann Manufacturing. Marie Ratermann is in charge of the marketing department and Mary is in charge of the printing department. So from there, I don't really know what for sure is going to be asked of me since I am now going to have two people that have questions that they wanted to interview me with. So off we go.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I am Marie Ratermann. And Mary, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I am Marie Ratermann, also known as Mary Carter. And I sometimes also Mary O'Day. But anyway, I run our label department and custom imprint.
Yes, Mary's married, so that's how the name change happened, but we still call her Mary Ratermann to avoid confusion there. Okay, so George, we were requested to do this episode where we interview you. So Mary and I have our questions, but I think to start, we would actually just like to hear how you got into the industry.
Yeah, well, I got in the industry like a lot of people do. You kind of start out in it, not really think you're going to maybe be in the industry, and it kind of grabs a hold of you. I had a very fortunate situation. My dad was with Union Carbide, and he was in charge of, he had many different parts of his career, but one of his key parts of his career was coming out with the Lindy Power Supply line. And so we moved to Florence, South Carolina when I was about 6 or 7 years old, and that was where they started building and manufacturing the power supply lines. So really at that point in time, Florence is a fairly small, remote town. So when people came to visit, Ray Townsend from Tweco Products and Glenn Pacific, different people invented like the pinch arc and all kinds of different folks like that. They usually came to our house for dinner. So, you always heard all the conversations and met people around the country. And then my dad's job was to travel around the country and convince people why they should be buying a Lindy Power Supply versus some of the other key brands. So I remember I was fairly young. We used to have in our bathroom a little developing system to be able to Bessler developer. And I used to before my dad would go on trips, he'd take pictures of the inside of machines to show the difference of how Lindy put their machines together and how other competitive brands did. And I'd be in there with a little developer making, copies of the photos of the different machines. And then my dad would usually go on a couple week trips. And that, I was probably about, I don't know, probably 9 or 10 or 11, somewhere in that range. And he'd go out for a couple weeks around the country and come back and you'd hear the stories of all the different distributors he visited and all the different, industries and different applications. So it was always very fascinating. And then, jumping ahead years later, I ended up, in San Jose. Before that, actually, we moved to Bakersfield, California, and I ended up working during the summer at Baker's Welding Supply. And I did what a lot of people do when they're younger. You get all the jobs that nobody else wants to do. And so I would be painting cylinders. I was in seventh grade, and I was probably legally, I probably shouldn't have been out there, but I was out there, and they let me paint cylinders. And they used to joke. They used to say, well, there's 2 gallons of paint, 1 gallon of paint is put on the cylinders, and 1 gallon of paint is put on George and the floor. I was not the best painter as far as being neat, but I was very effective at getting lots of cylinders painted. If you've never been to Bakersfield, Bakersfield can be about 105, 110 degrees in the shade and very dry. Not a lot of humidity, and I'd be painting with the paintbrush. We didn't have those cool paintbrushes we sell now where they bend around the tank. We'd put a little 4-inch paintbrush. They would get sticky about the halfway down because it was so hot and all. Painted a lot of cylinders, and then I worked into be able to work in the little. They had a repair facility there. They fixed all the torches. A lot of mobile rigs there because the oil industry. So there's a lot of torches and regulators that got repaired. And there's the most fantastic guy, Harvey Holland. And I kept telling Harvey, I got to get this repair room. I'd be so excited to be able to do the torch repairs and regulator repairs. So I kind of would go during lunchtime and I would kind of sandblast and do different things to try to get the preps and kind of learn more. Harvey was a really big man. He's like 6'8", just a really big man, strong guy. And so, very intimidating guy, but he had the most gentlest, wonderful heart you could ever possibly have in a person. And I remember I was in there, and I finally convinced him, okay, let me sandblast and do these parts. He said, okay, I got the afternoon off at a meeting I'm going to, go ahead. And I did, man, I was going to impress him. I sandblasted the torches, I sandblasted the handles, the 315 handles, Victors, and I did the regulators. I had them all done. I was so proud of myself. I had about 40 pieces sandblasted. It was so good. And Harvey came back in and he looked at me, he goes, that's fantastic, George. but where are all the name tags? And I looked at him, I said, name tags? He goes, I said, oh, they're on top of the sandblaster. He goes, but what goes to which name tag? And I was like, oh my gosh, I was devastated. I thought, oh my gosh, this may be my last day also working in here. And Harvey did such a great job. He ended up saying to me, George, well, you got the tags. You need to start calling some people. So I ended up calling all those customers. It was a great lesson. And he never raised his voice or anything else. He just said, you need to call them all, and you're going to need to find out who had what. So I did that. It took me a couple of days, but I ended up getting a hold of all the people and finding out what torch they dropped off or regulator. Learned a lot with that. Also learned that we want on tags to say what is what's supposed to be on the tag. So, I worked there. I was able to do some wonderful jobs there that were really difficult jobs to do in one way, because they as a young person, they had another product like Bundy tubes. We used to sell Bundy tubes there, which is used for hard facing. And they would bring those pallets in, and I would start Bundy, wrapping them up. You couldn't use any tape. You had to use string. I do like 100 at a time. I remember I did that for about 5 days, and I was all done. And out came the forklift, taking them all away. I was so happy. I was like, thank gosh, I get to go do some other job. And then here came the fork with another whole pallet of them, and started all over for another week of, putting Bundy tubes together. So anyways, I did that, worked there, had a lot of great experiences, wonderful people I worked with, really good folks. And then I ended up in San Jose. And really, I was in San Jose. I was going to, my dream was to be a writer. I really wanted to be a writer. I love bringing, the creativity of that and bringing ideas into fruition. And I was very excited about that concept. Did a lot of writing. Even in football, I'd usually go home, and before I'd do other things, I'd go home and had a ritual of at least an hour and a half to 2 hours of writing. I do that every night. And so then I ended up, getting in the business in a sense by the fact that my dad bought a real small distributorship up in San Jose. And I was really making sales calls. I go into college, and I was making sales calls back and forth to work. And I made money on the weekends and evenings hauling trash, of all things, hauling trash. And then I ended up, as I was making sales calls, going to college, and I'd always help my dad out on the weekends or in the evening. But I just started making sales calls and found out I liked it. And I ended up, having more and more success making sales calls and learning more about it. And I ended up, in the business, and really, really, truly enjoying it and very excited about it.
Yeah, that's it's funny now hearing the story of you painting. I understand why in most of our marketing meetings you always bring up our paint products, and you must really love our paint rollers.
Well, I do. I do look at those paint rollers with
very passionate,
with much glee, And also, as you probably know, being that you're my daughters, whenever we've done projects around the house, if we go ahead and we're out in the country, so we're always doing piping projects, and pretty much every piece of clothing I have has some level of glue, blue glue, or the primer on my clothes, and usually on my children and everybody else, or the dog that might be near me. They usually end up with paint or glue on them. Yeah.
Yeah. If you could give a message to our customers right now, being that they're listening as well, what would you like to tell them?
Well, I hope they are listening, so that'd be fantastic. First, I want you to listen. Well, I think what I'd want to tell them is that, our company is based on listening to our customer and doing what our customer needs. Every single thing we do, all of our processes are really all geared around a very simple thing. And that's one of the things that makes our company, we all work together very clearly because we have one objective. What do we need to do for the customer? And understand that that's the only reason we are here. And I know everybody hears that stuff, but it really is the only reason we're here. And if everything's built around that, at the end of the day, we need to take care of our customer in whatever we have to do, whether we have to drive something after hours to UPS to make sure it gets out, whether we truly believe that we have to treat customers with respect, just like guests. A guest comes to your house. What do? You offer them a glass of water. What do you need to do to, they're your guests. And that's how we look at all of our customers, that they're guests, and what we have to do to service that guest to make sure that they have the greatest experience they can possibly have. And we, at the same time, love to have that conversations and have fun with them and get to know them and have relationships, because we're in this for the long term. And we really enjoy the fact that our customers are also long-term customers. Gas distributorships are long-term. They're in it for the long term, just like we are. So I think that my message would be is that, as well as saying thank you so much for all the support they gave us. And, they they give us the opportunity to come up with the next new products, the next new opportunities in the industry to be able to bring maybe step change, mode change type products. And that all comes from their support and buying products from us. And then as a family, I can tell you as a family, as all you guys know from being younger, it was very clear that there's two people that we absolutely have to respect and appreciate and thank every single day. And that is every employee that works at our place. Thank you for everything you do, because that's what allows our family to be able to eat. And then our customers, thank you for the fact you buy from us and choose to buy from our manufacturing, because you have a lot of choices, but you choose to buy from our manufacturing. And we thank you for that, because again, our family gets to eat. So thank you so much. And I think that to me, is that hand to mouth understanding that is the reality. And we don't have any misunderstanding of the fact where we stand with that, and that our customer is the person that we are there for. And we've got to be thinking of everything we do during a day. How will that affect our customer? Not how it's going to affect us, now how it might be a disruption to us, or maybe take a few more steps, but what we need to do to take care of that customer and put that in place. That would be my really clear message.
Woo! That was a very clear and wonderful message.
Well, good. I'm glad you liked it. It's always good if your daughters like your message, you know.
Well, so I had a question in regards to how did you decide to go and start your own business, right? Like where was that shift in either thought or motivation? Like what made you think like, wow, this is now what I want to do in like the next chapter I want to take?
Yeah, you know, I appreciate that question. It's a great question. Well, I would tell you that, you know, some things happen because they're planned, and some things happen because you're faced with situations in front of you and you do what you have to do. So in that particular case, you know, we had a gas distributorship, and that in San Jose and Silicon Valley, and we did a lot of cryogenics and specialty gases and all kinds of things. And then, you know, that business, we ended up selling that business. And when we sold that business, I was kind of like looking at what things I was going to do. And I was offered a job at that time, became Praxair. And my job there was a very fascinating job. There's a point to this story, is that I really, you know, we'd always been in Silicon Valley. And now there's a job that was really, at that time, it was about 32 locations, and then it kind of grew. And then I was promoted to a job which was really to bring all those locations together from the marketing and distribution. And then that kind of grew to a national job, and, you know, doing marketing and also, you know, really focused on hard goods and sales of hard goods. So I was doing that. And then actually your mother got really ill, and, you know, fully recovered, as you know, and she got really ill. We had 4 little children, and we live, you know, out there, and we have 4 children in 5.5 years. So it was kind of like its own troop of folks coming by. And so I really had a decision I had to make, which was, I still remember, you know, going through that mindset and said, well, the doctor said it'd probably be, you know, 6 to 12 months and until your mom was get better. And I was traveling all over the country. My job was to kind of like, you know, what should we be doing? What can we be doing? And putting that together. And I really decided I couldn't do that job justice, at the same time, my family justice. So I ended up giving my resignation, which they were great about. They understood, and they were very supportive. And then I really, you know, was taking care of you guys and your mom and all the things that we needed to do during that time. And then as your mother was getting better, I had a little more free time, and I ended up developing some products and being focused on that. And then there was that kind of point where when your mom was fully recovered, that I was like, what am I going to do now? And then that was when I really said, well, gosh, I really enjoy what I'm doing. I enjoy the ability to interface with distributors. I love working with the distributors in the industry. So I ended up starting Ratermann Manufacturing, and sat down and said, okay, I'm going to write up a business plan, and I'm going to start this new business and go out there and develop products that bring value to people and bring service to people where they, you know, can see, you know, hopefully ideas and things that can bring mode change and things like that.
Before we jump further into Ratermann Manufacturing, I've given a lot of thought, because I'm now 28. Mary is about to turn 31. And you had, yeah, but you and Mom had 4 kids. And when you started Ratermann, which you left, you know, this very comfortable job to start Ratermann basically out of a shed of this new home that you had. And you were only like, I think like, to put it nicely, you were only like 34 at the time. And I just wonder, from your experience working at Welding to Supply to when first starting Ratermann, for people that are listening that are younger, or even for myself, because this has come to mind a lot, like, what were the biggest challenges? If you could look back, like, what was your top 2 challenges during that time that you were able to navigate around? And,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, the first one is for anybody that's had children and working, and especially when you're trying to build a career. Anytime you're trying to build a career, it is a full-time job. So the first one is getting sleep. That would probably be the, the most difficult thing, and where to fit the work in, because there's a balance, and family was very, very important to me. And so the challenge, I think, at that time, I would, as you guys probably remember, we joke around about it being the shed, but above our storage area, I had an office up above here, and I would, basically, I would have you guys up there with me, and we'd watch some TV, and I had my desk where I do some paperwork and all that. And you guys would usually fall asleep to a Disney movie after we did other things, and then I'd carry you back up to the house, and then after that, I'd come back down and be able to do other work, because we'd be, depending on the kind of work I was doing. So I joke about that, but really getting rest and having balance with a family was probably the most difficult piece, because the reality is when you start a business, that business owns you, and for sure owns you for the first couple of years. It is the number one thing: how to stay in business, how to survive, and what do you have to do every single day. So I think that was probably the biggest challenge.
What about in terms of like motivation? I mean, it's already kind of like a inside family joke about reading the different motivational books, like The Dip.
Yeah. Yeah.
When do you know to keep pushing through, and when do you know to kind of like, okay, maybe this is the time to kind of reevaluate and maybe take a different direction? But in that moment, and I get, totally can sympathize wanting the balance with family and being around family and everything, especially now that I have my own and I'm now dealing with that aspect. But how do you, with all those other challenges, what motivated you, or what propelled you to be like, all right, no, this is the time to push through? Or like, what did you use? Did you, have people you confided to, or, like mentors kind of a thing? Like how did you get through such a difficult phase on top of having, the family aspect, like wanting to provide, wanting to be there with everybody?
Yeah. Well, I could see that my book reports I made all you guys do, and I give you books and I make you guys do your books, had some scarring effects because you're still picking up the book, The Dip. But yeah, I think anytime you, so for all the people listening, I would give different books out to folks that I thought that in our family that I thought they should really read, and do a little book report on it. And then but it worked well because we're all in the same language. We understood what we meant by the dip or any other number of terminologies. I'll tell you, the future is the thing. And if you focus on the future, what can be and what you believe can be, then that is really extremely motivating. And because, we really all have control of what that future is going to be. It can seem like we don't have control, particularly like a time right now in COVID where it seems like everything's happening to us. And it is, but, we still have choices of what we do with our time and how we look at it and how we look at the future. And I just really felt very motivated as I looked at what the future could be and how to make that future what I felt would be the right design, for our family and for myself. It was things like you guys were at 3 different schools. So I was purposely, as I was thinking about growing a business, I was very excited about being able to get a location, that was going to be near the 3 schools. So I picked on a map a spot between all 3 schools so I could get to anybody's school in 5 minutes, and I could get to a school play, or somebody forgot their lunch money or whatever it might be. It could do that. So I think now that's one example, but I think that really the future is the key, is being motivated about what can we do? What can we change that's not there today? Come back. And I think I'm a big believer of fruition. And that, it's always that, a lot of people will sometimes say, well, can you really make a change? And then on a day-to-day basis, the change looks small, and maybe the progress is small, and the learning is painful. I find learning very painful. I'm in pain every day, I think, because I also like to learn, but it's very painful. But, when you look in the rearview mirror and you look back, then you go, wow, we did get somewhere. We did make some changes and some very positive effects. I think the other thing is that, when you have a family, I think you walk the talk. And I think if you want to have people, whether people working for you or people in your family, you got to be genuine. You got to be the real McCoy about it, and you got to walk the talk. You can't just talk about it. You got to do it. So I think that also is very motivating for me, because it was very important to me that my children or people working with me would feel, they would see the clear goal and direction I was going.
So one thing that I love about working for you, I'm based here in San Francisco City proper, and I have friends that work at a ton of giant tech companies and all like dream jobs, if you will. But then when you get talking with them, their title may seem very big, but they're actually very frustrated in the sense that they're not heard very often and their ideas aren't implemented very often. And something that I think I used to take for granted, but now have come to really appreciate, is that if I come to you with a new idea, as long as I'm, backing up what those benefits could be and looking at the pros and cons and showing a plan to implement it, and not even as long as, just you're always open to hearing ideas from any person at Ratermann and in the company, and implementing those ideas as well, which I think is wonderful. And when I look at yourself, you also, probably more than I come to you, and I'm in the marketing department, you're constantly coming to us with all these new ideas. And we sit here today on a podcast, which is brand new to what we were doing last year or the year before that. You're doing the R bar where you're interviewing people for charities. And I see you do these things, but I also see you run a company 12, 13-hour, 14-hour work days consistently, plus all these new things that you're doing. And I just wonder, to piggyback off of Mary's question, why are you motivated for so many new things when things are working well as they already are?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I think when you're doing new things, you're learning, and I really do enjoy learning. And I wasn't joking when I said learning is very painful. I find it extremely painful. I always know when I'm learning a lot, because it's very painful. I'm always questioning my ability. So I think that it's where it comes back to that same thing. It's where it can be and where you can go. And I think for me, I have just a tremendous hunger of what are the opportunities in the future you can do. So I really believe you kind of build a springboard, and from that springboard, you got then larger and bigger things that you can accomplish and do. So that for me is, it ties into for me anyways, it ties into my whole motivation, because I don't think opportunities in the future, I learned a great thing from my dad, opportunities are only opportunities you're ready for, right? And if you haven't done all the right things ready for the next opportunity, it's not really an opportunity. So it could be an opportunity, something could happen if you were there. But so I've really tried to always perform in the sense that I'm be ready for that opportunity, whether it be educating myself or positioning myself, and not always am I, and then I watch opportunities maybe go by, but I try to strive to look at how to make myself, be ready for that next opportunity. And I also think that you have to always thinking about the other shoe falling. If, as we all know, if you're in business, if you're just sitting around, then you're falling behind, because everybody else is moving forward. And it's one of the things I love about our culture, of the fact that we're all trying to get a little bit better, a little bit better than the day before. The entrepreneurship of having a little bit better product, a little bit better way we deliver it, bring more value. That competitiveness is what strives and makes our country really a fantastic country, and has that entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah.
So what would be your advice then for somebody who's looking to maybe kind of pursue their own path forward, in terms of whether that's creating their own business? I guess it could be the same for maybe they're just trying to, move within a company, move upwards. Yeah. But especially for an individual that's looking to start their own business or really take that leap, what would your advice be outside of, because I know even for myself, especially growing up, typically you kind of just always get find something you love, follow that dream. And it's that is great, but I feel like there's a lot, a lot more that needs to be there, in terms of a foundation or for that springboard. What would your advice be to actually give a path?
I'll tell you, I think, from my view, I don't think it's a matter whether you're thinking of trying to start your own company or you're working for somebody else. I think that whatever you're doing, I think to me, it all comes down to accountability. If you're doing your job with full accountability, and we always hear that word accountability, but accountability means the excuses don't matter. What do I have to do to get it solved? It may be inconvenient. It may not be comfortable. It may be a lot of hard work. And maybe even risk, it may be career risk. But I think that it's the accountability to know that you're going to be accountable to yourself. I've sort of felt the same way in football. I'm in a football team. This whole team's going to do great, but I'm going to be accountable. I'm going to do every possible thing that I can do to make us have the best outcome we can have. And so, whether it's my job or not, whatever I need to do, I'm going to do. And I think that's a carrying thing for people. I think that if people are doing in that mindset, not what they need to do, or is it my job or not my job, but what can I do so I own it, learn it, and understand it? And when that happens, opportunity happens. And that opportunity could be advancements in a company. It could be offered a position you might not even thought, and I think also with that mindset, you're asking for certain positions because you're willing to earn it. You're willing to put the time in to show it. And I think that sometimes is something that sometimes people can feel like, wow, I'm putting all this extra effort and energy in something. Is it really going to pay off? But at the end of the day, whether that exact moment somebody's recognizing it, it doesn't really matter. What matters is you're developing and growing and own it. So once you own it, you know how to do it, and you've got that skill set, nothing holds you back.
True. Yeah.
Yeah. So that actually kind of plays into the fact that every employee at Ratermann, and also growing up, it was always, it's okay to not know something, and it's okay to admit when you were wrong. Why do you believe in that so much?
Yeah. So I'll give you an analogy, right? You go down to Best Buy, not to beat up on Best Buy or Home Depot or wherever, and you go in and you say, hey, look, I'm looking for this device. I'd like to get another one of these routers, whatever it is, and I'm looking at this part. And the person looks at you and says, yeah, I've never seen that here. And you're like, okay, I don't think we carry that. You're like, well, I bought one here 2 weeks ago, I'm pretty sure. And then you start asking another question. Well, hey, how long have you worked here? And they say, oh, I bet this is my third day. Like, well, on your third day, you probably haven't seen it, and so I think it's just so much more powerful to get to what we're trying to accomplish, which is to say to somebody in a positive way, not as a discounting, taking accountability, but in a positive way, say, I just started here. I just finished my training. I can see that you say you bought this here 2 weeks ago. We should have something. So let me go find the right person that can help me find that part. And some way to, or maybe it's in another department, let me walk you over your department. Hey, other department, this is what they're trying to solve. I think that when people can just say, I don't know something, it's how you say I don't know something. If you say I don't know something so you don't have to be responsible and you're going to walk away from it, that's different. But if you're finding yourself saying, I really, I got to get the right person to get the right information. Let me ask you 4 or 5 key questions, and by getting the right questions, you can usually solve most problems. What's interesting about so many things, it's basic principles. And, you can look at a lot of things that can make you successful. If somebody's asking what things makes you successful, I can say this. It's all the things you hear, all the older sayings, right? Walk in somebody else's shoes, have empathy, understand what that's like to walk in somebody else's shoes. These things mean a lot. They make a big difference. I think there's so many of those kind of basic things that a lot of times, you get the MBAs and all these good things, but really when you look at it, it comes down to the basics: how you treat people, how you handle situations, are you honest, all those kind of things. But I think honesty and being genuine with somebody and hunger to learn. You want to hire somebody because of what they know, but you also want to hire somebody what they're capable of becoming to know and what they're willing to try to learn and aspire to.
Okay, so George.
Yes.
I would like to ask you, if you could hear a customer speak of Ratermann, what would you want them to be saying? And do you think that's true right now? What do you think Ratermann's doing really well, and where do you think Ratermann could improve a little?
Yeah, well, a lot in that question, right? Well, we for sure always want to have customers. I think if I had a customer talk about our company, we put it in our name, I would like to think they would say we're very reliable and we do what we say we're going to do. And they're comfortable and have the relationship with us, that they know we're there for them and we're working to help them in any way we can. Our ultimate goal is very customer focused, not just saying it, but by our actions and how we handle things. So that's what I would hope our customers would be saying. And then maybe also we're a little bit of fun and they enjoy working with us. As far as, I think one of the greatest compliments I had was I was talking to a gentleman at a trade show, and I asked the question, which I usually do, is how are we doing for you, and are we taking care of you like we should be? And his comment was, and I didn't know at first it was a positive comment, but his comment was, George, our company we don't hear anything about your company, your name, your company doesn't come up in our companies when we're having conversation. I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound very good that our company doesn't come up. And then he stopped, and he paused. I think he looked at my facial expression. He goes, well, let me just say this. We have people talking all the time about other companies we do business with. Your name doesn't come up. Your company name doesn't come up. But a lot of other people's names come up, and it's not good things they're talking about. And then I realized what his compliment was. And as he left, he said, you know what? It's wonderful dealing with your company because we don't have problems. We just get things the way we're supposed to, and people take care of things. So it's, in his words, a very, very great relationship in how they purchase from us. So I think that was really a good point. We all just want things to happen without having to put that extra time into it and trying to fix something that went wrong. I mean, we do make mistakes like everybody does, but you do everything you can do every day to try to improve that, look for the root issue and resolve it for the next time, and even try to proactively look ahead to make sure it hopefully never even happens to a customer.
So, and the rest of that question, do you think Ratermann is where you want it to be right now? I know you're always looking at improvements, but
oh my gosh, no. No, we're not. No, there's so many things we could, there's so many things you could do. And sometimes they're limited by technology, but there's so many things and very excited about many things we could do. We're very fortunate that we have a very centristic organization that really understands customers and cares about customers and cares about each other. So we have a really great group of people that allow us to do a lot of things and a lot of things we have planned in the future to do. I think we do a very good job because we have some really talented, we have a dynamic group of folks. And I think that variety of all the different folks we have and what strengths they bring, I think that, it makes really a limitless things we could do and have been able to do, and we just have more things planned to do. How you like that?
Yeah. That sounds good.
It kind of makes me, well, I think that's great, but it makes me wonder, like, if we were to bring this all the way back, when you were first putting together your business plan for Ratermann in the very, very beginning, what did that look like? And then what does it look like now in reality? Like, did you
that's a great question.
Follow that path? Like, oh yeah, I achieved it. Or did it turn into something completely maybe different? Not, in a great way, but just something completely different that you couldn't have expected.
Well, okay, so excuse me.
Hot seat.
Well, yeah. Well, there's a lot around that. I started the business about roughly 22 years ago, and when I started the business, I had been in a corporate world before that, and I laid out a beautiful plan. If I was going to go back to the corporate office for a board meeting and all when I was in the corporate world, I felt very confident that I'd go in with good data, good layouts, and really be able to get buy-in to what we're going to do and excitement around it. I laid this thing out. It was great. And I went to my upstairs office, and I was so proud of this thing. And then all of a sudden, I was going through the pages, and I looked at the first page, and I said, man, that's a great outline of what we need to have as part of the company. And I'm really bad at that. And so I looked at the next page, and I looked at that, and I thought, I'm even worse at that part. And so I went through all these different segments and job kind of structures we need to have in the business. And I got done after I looked at all these pages, and I'm pretty much bad at all these things, so I said, I better change my business plan because I was by myself at that point. And I thought, but I basically said, I got to grow this business somehow with something, come up with enough products that people are interested to buy, that I can hire 4 good people at the things I'm really bad at. And I did that. And that was actually became the business plan. After all my highfalutin fancy stuff, that got slid aside. So when you ask the question, I ended up hiring, 5 fantastic people and grew the business with some really great talented folks and have a lot of fun with them. I think that's a really important thing too. We all work really hard, but we also have good sense of humor and know how to have fun and can really appreciate each other's sense of humor. So that was really kind of the business plan. I will also tell you that's what's interesting is 20 some years later in COVID world, I'm back, in this office that I was started at. And and what I also I'll tell you is the things 20 years ago I was really bad at, I could probably say today I'm still really bad at them. So so that's been kind of a surreal thing.
And also, I mean, I would like to paint the picture of your office of when so you left Garen, or well, I guess it was bought by Prexair at the time. Yourself, mom who was sick at the time, and 4 kids moved to a house that was, I don't want to say severely underdeveloped, but it was
a very traditional older ranch home.
Yeah, it was. There were 6 of us. It was 2 bedroom, like 1 bath.
Pretty much everybody said, and really politely would say, "Why did you guys move out here?"
Right. And the weeds were taller than us kids. We had rules of how far we could go into the field because we could get lost. We, for some reason, decided to get sheep because we now had land. George, you were running your office is above what is a barn, and then we had a shed off of that, which we would make forts in, but that was like your shipping warehouse. And I just think it's so funny and like wild that now, you've since developed the property and the house, but and what we call the barn, but which is your office. But I think it's so wild that you're now working back there. And I mean, us kids were I'm sure a handful, and you have some pretty funny stories of like the sheep getting out and getting into your shipping warehouse and trying to ship orders out with all these sheep around you.
Yeah.
But,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I just say I've relived a few of them, and this sounds absolutely ridiculous, but it's true. We're on well water, and so the restroom up here has the toilets and all operate off the well water, and our well, years ago when I was up here 20 some years ago, if our well went out, we had no water, and I'd have to go to the pool with a bucket of water and fill up the back of the toilet so we could flush the toilet, right? And so in between meetings, you have to go get a bucket of water because we had a couple more people up there as we started out here working. And the other day, our well went out, so here I was going back to the pool, getting a bucket of water.
Oh man.
100 yards away and bringing it down here to put it in so I could flush the toilet. So yeah, we had a lot of funny experiences in the beginning days.
Yeah. Well,
I'll also say so, but you're right. I mean, now we have a very nice facility in Livermore, a corporate office, and we have a very large, substantial distribution center and light manufacturing in Nashville, Tennessee, and we also have a facility in Houston. So it is very different today across the country, and then we of course have salespeople located around the country, as well as some other mini micro distributions locations we have.
Yeah. And I remember, actually, I was over at the house a few weeks ago and we got DoorDash delivered, and the lady said, "Hey, was that barn an office years ago, like 15 years ago or 20 years ago?" And we're like, "Yes, it was." And she was like, "Oh, yeah, I was a temp agent when that gentleman first started." And it was just so bizarre. And she's like, "This is completely different than how it used to be." But that leads me to my next question. So Ratermann, I mean, Mary and I have grown up with so many people that work at Ratermann. A lot of people have just been there since the beginning, and they really do love each one of our customers and like sitting in on meetings. There's so much detail and knowledge spread throughout the company about each customer, so that when a customer calls, they're not feeling like they're dealing with a giant corporate company, and that it's actually very in tune to what they want. But the employees at Ratermann are so amazing and do take a lot of accountability for every one of their jobs, and it's a very pleasant place to work. I've definitely learned a lot from the people around us working with them. But I think something that isn't really talked about a lot is how much work you put into allowing people to be heard, and also the week-long training you do where you fly everyone in from around the country, and you don't just train people on business practices, but also bring in speakers that talk about self-development and like personal help. And I think that's really powerful. And I just was curious as to why you think people having a voice and people being able to express their thoughts and to keep
Yeah.
learning is so important.
Well, this is my judgment on it. Okay, is you go into a meeting, and let's say you have a meeting with 8 people coming to a meeting or 6 people coming to a meeting, and as a CEO, you've got a very clear concept of what you think the company needs to do. Now, you can go into that meeting and tell everybody what you think the company needs to do, or you can go in that meeting with a picking on model of what you think would be the what you're looking to try to achieve, and what you think would be a picking on model to do that. For me, what a great meeting is I walk out pretty much clear that I really think this is what we should do and how we should do it. And I walk out and 50% of it's different than what I walked in with. I'm pretty excited about that. That means that, I guess you could say also I had a lot of bad ideas, but I walk in, I'm pretty excited about that because that means everybody in that room is really involved. They're part of it. Their brain's engaged with it. They feel, they put the time and energy into it with what they think their thoughts are to it, and also pulled out commitment in the fact that they are committed to what they think those beliefs are. And so I think that the strength is getting everybody's different thoughts. We all think we might have the best thought. I think what's difficult is stopping and realizing, from depending on the viewpoint, who different ideas have different values and different weighing. Part of my job is to decide and try to weigh those things and make a good decision based on that. But I think that's why, for me, I think there's that. I think also the fact that, we're all human beings. I mean, we come to work, but we all have families. We all have different issues and different things we're dealing with in life. And it is one wholeness. I'm not one to necessarily say at work I'm going to, I expect everybody to work really hard. But I do think you have to have empathy and understanding and basic kindness of how, people, things that they're working through or working, trying to get done in their lives. But at the same time, I think that people, when I look at starting the company, I felt that, there's a couple basic principles. One, I really want to come to work. And 2, I want to grow, develop, and be a little bit better the next day than I was the day I came to work. And I want to have fun, not by goofing off. I want to have fun by success and the enthusiasm that comes with really being able to get to that spot, right? It's almost like the good ending of a movie, right? Their team made that last touchdown and won the game, or whatever it might be that got that euphoria that we got there, right? So for me, I think I'm looking for people that want to be part of that, and I tell people that. And when they come to work at our place, or I'm talking to them, I said, "You're going to work hard." And if the number one thing is somebody's trying to figure out how to work the least amount, that we're a wrong place to work at. If you want to work at a place that's going to be a long-term, you grow, develop, there's excitement about what the future is going to bring and new opportunities, we're the right place. And I feel then also at the same time, it should be enjoyable during the workday. I don't like the roller coaster ride. I don't want people being frustrated during the day or backstabbing feelings or all the other kind of things. To me, the motivation should be is we all see the vision, we're all trying to get to the same vision, and we're excited about where we're trying to get to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great answer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One thing I was curious about, and maybe this is too personal, but obviously you're our father, right? And we've worked throughout the years in different positions and different ages and everything. But now, that it's more career-based and minded, our roles in the company. How did you have to transition, I guess, a mindset, right? I mean, obviously there's a transition of family versus this is work now. I get that.
Yeah.
But I'm just even trying to reflect more and imagining okay, I have my children and, they're working with me now, and through the years. Did you have to go through a period of time, or do you still maybe find yourself sometimes having to reset and be oh, wait, this person is not 12 anymore, or is not 8? Do you have to almost do some separation of child? Yeah. This person is an adult now, or this person is, because I'm just thinking with my own kids, it's it would still be kind of hard. I would have a hard time where at the end of the day, it's but you're still my baby,
right. Yeah.
You could be
sure
40, but you're still my baby. Did you have to, is that hard, I guess, on the daily, or it's something that I haven't necessarily considered before, but what is that dynamic for you?
Yeah. So to answer your question, I think you give your children gifts, right? And you got to decide what gifts you give them. They could be good gifts or bad gifts, so I think that I made the comment earlier, it's painful to learn I do think it's painful to learn. I think it's painful for your children to learn, and they need to go through that. And at the same time, you want at the right moments to be able to step in to help out or be supportive. But your children do need to go through that. And the same way I did, and the same way all of us do. I think that's a healthy thing. And so to answer your question relative to family, I find myself separating the two pieces. I clearly see that my children are my children. I care about them very much. But I always have something that talks to me in the back of my head, and that is the fact that everybody else working in our company, they should not have a burden, extra burden, because I decide or one of my children or relative decides to work in the business. Everybody should carry their weight, correctly, and not because they have the same last name. And so I think that, when I look at that situation, I'm always finding myself saying, I want my child to be respected, not because they have the same last name and people have to put up with them, or I want them because people will say, you know what, they really do their job, and they do matter of fact, they go over and above doing their job. Because when you're the boss's son or daughter, the reality is people are going to be a little more critical. And I will also add something else. They should be more critical. I think they absolutely should be more critical, because you have more opportunity when you're the daughter or son of the owner. You usually have opportunity of exposure to things maybe other people don't have, whether it be going to a meeting or just having the opportunity to be over hear a conversation with somebody, a vendor or something else like that, any number of things, or the opportunities to be able to get in a certain position. So I think that ownership is so important for people to really value that, and the people working for you to value it. Because if they don't value it, that's when you have other things that happen. So, that for me is a big piece. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's...
No, it does. And I mean, Marie can, say it as well, but like, I know growing up, it was never like, it was all, not like the bad jobs, but it's like you had to, you had to earn it. Like, I just remember many summers just filing papers, and like put them in, which is fine. You learn, and like, you have that appreciation, like going back to the paper, right? And it's just like,
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think one of the things I modified a little bit my thought pattern when my children were interested in working the business or helping out in the business is I did try to pepper that and say, if you just always have lousy jobs, that's what you might think that's business is about, right?
Right. And it wasn't always lousy, but it was very much like, well, I'm not just going to put you up here. Like, you need to earn your way upwards, which is
I agree.
Fair.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I talked about my desire to want to get in the sandblasting room, to start sandblasting and fixing torches and regulators. I'd already cut a lot of cable and swept a lot of floors and did Bundy tubes and a lot of things and paint cylinders. And there's nothing wrong with all that. Those are all great jobs. They need to get done. But what I meant is that if you always have the go-to, the kind of job that everybody literally doesn't want else go do, and that's all you do, that can be a little frustrating when you're young and you're trying to see the future. It seems like, well, where's this leading to? You can't really see it when you're younger. And I think that it's important when somebody's younger that they can get some of the other aspects that, oh, that's pretty cool, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think anything's handed to them, but I do think that there's a balance of that. Maybe normally you wouldn't send somebody 5-10 years into their job. You might send them into a training thing for a day or something. And I might do that a lot younger. I might have done that with you guys, where you go to a one-day Excel class, but you're a junior in high school, and, but you get a takeaway. So one of the things I always felt too is I think it's true, whether your children or anybody working with you, you want to have people walk away with something where they feel they have more value by what they've been exposed to. And you try to do that, whether it be training classes or other kind of things that you do. You want to bring that not just to your own children, but really to everybody working for you, because that's what makes it feel like one big family, and everybody's trying to work together to achieve things.
Yeah. Also, like, quick story of working for you at a very young age. One summer, you're probably paid as like $1 an hour. I don't know. It was like,
we paid big.
Yeah. Yeah. I had this denim couch. It was like a kid couch I found at Target that I really wanted to buy. And you're like, yeah, keep working. At the end of summer, you'll probably have enough money. You can buy this couch. And I was so excited. You kept saying that we'll get paid at the end. It was like towards the end of summer or something. And I was like, heck yeah. And then we got our pay stubs. It was like $3. And I was like, what is this? And you're like, oh, sweetie, there's a thing called 401k, and I have your paychecks go to a 401k. And I was so upset. And probably still harbor it a little bit. But the next
Maybe
day,
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. And then the next day and I remember saying like, well, then can you pay for the couch? And you're like, no, you just have to keep working till you get that money for that couch. And then the next day I was so mad and I was like, I don't even know why I'm working. And then you found me sleeping under the desk and fired me. But then the day after that, you sat us all down and explained what a 401k was and long-term thinking versus short-term thinking. And it became very motivating, you know, to know like, oh, wow, it's almost like a savings of our own here and made us feel like there's more opportunity outside of that denim couch, which I never got, by the way. But probably a good purchase decision not to purchase
denim's
that.
kind of out. Yeah.
Yeah. Stains easily, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, so that's a really, really good point. And I think you have, I can recall so many times that you've taught in that way. I have a question for you about, okay, so, you know, a lot of times you hear people say, like, if I could go back in time, I would tell myself X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
Of things you would change. But I would love to know if you look back in time, what would you tell yourself that you did a really good job at when it relates to business? I mean, it could be personal too.
Well, I usually am pretty focused on what I'm not doing a good job at.
Yeah,
but
I know that.
yeah, you know, I think I've done a good job of having a vision, and I think I've done a good job of earning that vision. I think I've done a good job of working whatever I needed to do and working very, very hard. When I say whatever I need to do, I mean correct things to do, and worked very hard to make that vision happen. So I think I've done a very good job of that. I think I've done a good job of having folks I work with where we all feel we are valued and we bring value, and where we've been able to bring things to fruition.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very good. And I love your statement of saying, like, you know, you're doing the hard things that you have to do, but they're the correct things, which are normally the hardest decisions, if I can speak here, are the right decisions. So
yeah, I think, you know, a guiding principle I use all the time, and because it's so true. You know, it's easy to do things when it's easy, and it's hard to do things when it's hard, right? So simple sounding, right? But the thing is, you do the right thing when it's already really hard or when it's easy, but you got to do the right thing. And that's what's hard. You got to, because it usually has a financial impact or an emotional impact or a time impact. That's something, but you have to be able to put your head in the pillow at night and say, to the best of my knowledge at that time and what I knew and what I did, I did the right thing, whether it was not necessarily the best thing for me, but long-term, it was the right thing to do. You know, so I think I think I've done a good job of being that person.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. You know, I'm curious, why did you decide to, I mean, because personal background is on the distributor side. Why, when starting Ratermann, did you become, you know, a supplier, like switch sides? Like what motivated you there?
Guys, that's a really interesting question. You know, I've not really been asked that question before. You know, piece of it was, and in all honesty, I'd kind of done the distributorship thing and really enjoyed it. It was fantastic. I haven't really done the other thing on the backside of that, being the supplier, and the other thing is I like to develop products and developing products and being able to do distribution, and of course developing products and selling across the United States seemed like a natural thing that went along with that. I think that, you know, I had some basic premises that I wanted to be able to bring products out at that time once I decided to move forward with Ratermann manufacturing. And so I think it was just a natural idea that would be the direction to go.
What's like your favorite product, or do you have one that's kind of like your golden child?
Okay,
one that you're maybe really proud of, you know?
Yeah.
Not to say golden child, that's weird when both you have two kids on here. Like,
yeah, George.
No favorite child. Yeah. Just saying, is there one that maybe you're really proud of?
I think there's a number of them to come that I'm very excited about, that we've been working on, that, you know, have a longer germination period to get out. And it's one of the exciting things as you grow the business, you're able to do some things that are a little longer term projects and all. So there's a number of those things that I think I'm going to be very excited about. I think in the past, you know, it's interesting also is that products you thought would be really the product that you might love and think is fantastic, and nothing happened with it. It just didn't go. And yet you thought it had all kinds of legs to it and values to it. But, I think that I can tell you my interestingly simple product that has always taught me a lot, because it keeps you humble. And that is the fact that my very first product was a ring, and it was a metal ring, and that was it. And that was what I sold. And if you want to have people make jokes and tease you and give you a bad time when you're at a trade show and all you're selling is a ring, and it was a Wireman products, and it was a ring, and I was so excited about this. And there's a longer story of why I was making rings. And I thought, well, we'll use these for empty rings to put them on it. And I had a wire straightening machine and all this good stuff. And that's another story. But and I went to a trade show, and I thought, this is fantastic. I got these rings. I'm so excited about the rings. Everybody can identify their cylinders, whether they're full or empty. This is a great game changer. And people would come up and they say, what do you sell? I said, well, I got rings, So what I ended up doing is I ended up getting a cylinder. I found a place, that local place could give me a cylinder. I put a cylinder in the back of the booth, and I thought, I'll do a ring toss like at the carnival, right? This would be great. So people would do a ring toss. And I brought all this inventory. I brought all my inventory. I only had I think I had 3,000 rings that I had made. And I said, I'll just bring all this inventory. And I had a thing that said, if you could ring this cylinder, I did it kind of like a spur of the moment. I got to do something more exciting than this. If you ring this cylinder, you'll win 500 rings, right? And this would be great. Well, I thought I threw the ring a few times. Pretty hard to do. So sure enough, I got this thing going. And somebody walks by, and they threw the thing, and it ringed. I'm like, oh my gosh, it ringed. And they won. I'm like, there went a quarter of my inventory almost. And then another person, Jerry Uchachi, walked out. He was the guy that used to be at L-Tech, walked over and just say, hey, George. And so he got a ring, and he threw it, and it ringed. I'm like, now I've lost 2/3, almost, a third to half my inventory is gone. And a third person walked up. It happened to be my brother was walking by. My brother took the ring and chucked it, and he won. Thank gosh I didn't have to give him the inventory. But he also rung it. And I'm now totally stressed. I'm like, all my inventory is pretty much gone. I'm almost out of business. I have no more money for inventory. What's going on? I kid you not, the rest of that trade show, not one single person rang the cylinder the rest of the trade show.
Oh,
it was the oddest thing. And I will also tell you, we had so much fun throwing the rings. People would come back. I thought, this is great. I got CFOs walking over, CEOs walking over, wanting to do the ring toss, and all that. And so anyways, that was my first product. And it was very humbling, because it is just a ring. And I did get a lot of teasing. And you had to look past that and say, okay, but I'm doing rings, And
right.
So that was the beginning of Wireman Products. That's what it was, one of my first businesses I started. I started that when I was in high school, actually. And I started doing wire straightening. And so that was really an opportunity I had come about because I was hauling trash, which is another interesting thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And the ring tag was the first thing you assembled, Mary, right? When you were a kid?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. We used to get you guys, we'd have you guys lined up. The chamber law, the labor laws were probably all being broken, but we'd line you guys all up. And because one of you could put the clip in, and one could get the little tags all lined up, and then
which
Mary
really hurt.
Mary could push the clips in. Yeah, I remember when everybody wanted to play games with you guys, they'd all be talking about, like any of those, the games you play with your thumbs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because you had to push with your thumb. Yeah, you guys had the strongest.
Champions.
You guys were champions, I'll tell you.
Well, that's what you want.
Yeah, it explains so much. I never connected the dots.
Yeah. Yeah, you know why we'd always do that. Everybody, all you do when the boys came over, I'd say, by the way, you should try that game, and then you guys would always whoop them.
So George,
yes,
I'm going to bring up something that I think very few people know.
Okay,
but after I say this, it may clear up some questions. Your emails. You are, I say, severely dyslexic, but you are dyslexic. Yeah. Actually, all three of us on this call are dyslexic. Being so, school has always been challenging but doable. Yeah. But you never, Mary graduated with all these honors and whatnot from private university that she paid for basically on her own at a young age. That's remarkable. But growing up, it was never pressure to go to college. It was always look at all of your options. And one of the biggest things you always said was you don't need to be the best at everything, but what you want to be good at or what you are good at, focus on. How has being dyslexic helped in your success?
Yeah, well, I appreciate you bringing that up. You know, being dyslexic can be tremendously frustrating. There's different levels of dyslexia. I was fortunate enough to be like a star at dyslexia. So you know, basic math and basic, you know, reading and all that. And here I wanted to be a writer, right? And yet, you know, so it's kind of an oxymoron thing, right? I mean, you can have all kinds of wonderful thoughts and great, deep conversations you want to put across in writing, but yet you're spelling a word incorrectly, not once, twice, but maybe 3 different ways during the same, you know, sentence or so. So there's a lot of struggle there, and there's a lot of internal struggle about looking at your intelligence and what you're trying to do, and also how many workarounds you have to do to get there. The other day, my spell check stopped working, and I actually ended up taking each word and then putting into Google and searching Google, and then reading the definition of it, say, okay, that is the right spelling of that word. I think it took me 20 minutes to do 2 sentences, you know. Probably that person got that email, but I'm like, well, my spell check, I had that Grammarly. Boy, that thing works. That is a great thing, that Grammarly.
It is.
So it is. You know, and my average spell checks, I'm so good at spelling incorrectly, I can usually outfool a spell check where it says, I have no idea what you're trying to say, you know. So, you know, I think, you know, back to your key point there, you know, how has it affected me and all? I have to say, I think I work really, really hard and to learn it. I have to take a few more steps to do that. I've found a lot of workarounds for myself to be able to learn. I truly thrive to learn. I love learning. So it's not like I don't have the capacity to learn. It's just much more difficult to read. I'm a lot slower reader than somebody else. But then I have other aspects that are strengths I have. So one of the things I learned is from the outside perspective, growing up as a child with dyslexia, is everything told you were not good. Everything told you that you had, you know, a deficit. You know, you were in the back of the classroom. You were not. You could do really hard and you turn in your paper in science, but your spelling was so bad that you still got an F or an F plus. Somebody's got F plus. That made me a little motivated, you know. So, but yet I understood. I could sit in a classroom and explain the science to other people and come up with other concepts, but yet I got the F on the paper, right? So there's a lot of that I think is difficult, but a lot of that, if you apply it to life, we have a lot of those things in life that happen, what people might say or how you perceive things, until later it looks like, oh, okay, I guess maybe they were on the right path and maybe they did have a good idea there. So I think that, you know, that part is difficult because it's not something physically people can see with dyslexia. They can definitely see your spelling, you know, and if you're asked to go up on the white, I have to tell people, I've learned this, about 15% of the people cannot handle me on a whiteboard because I spell so badly that I know it's driving them nuts. They want to go up there and wipe it off and correct it, you know. You know, and you got to have I mean, I try so hard to not make spelling errors and do that. I work very hard on math. I'm very good at math. And I'm very accurate on math because I have a lot of processes I put in place as double check processes, you know. So I think that I look at dyslexia like this. I think everybody in their life has something similar. I look at it as a coin. There's 2 sides of the coin. In my case, I have some real deficits on one side of the coin. I work really hard to try to improve those deficits. I work really hard to try to send something out that is spelled correctly. And I do a lot of things that I need to do that are not my strengths. But one of the things I've really recognized is what is your strength. Be really, really good at it. And realize you could probably just be good at it, right? You might just be able to be a good basketball player. You shoot the ball and most of the time it goes in. Just naturally you can do it. But think about if you put the effort to really become outstanding basketball player, what that could be. Because it might come naturally to you, but that extra effort, that extra energy. So what I try to do is things that I'm kind of good at is also not just work on the things I'm not so good at, but really try to emphasize, if I had any message, would be find those things that you have that are gifts that you have and strengths, and just work the heck out of those things. Or I would say at home, turn up the knob, get it really loud, you know, get it loud, and let's rock with it. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think too, like, even your interview process at Ratermann, whenever there's a new employee and we like welcome them or meet them, as in like Mary and I get to meet them for the first time, I almost every time hear, wow, that interview process was the most unconventional thing I've ever experienced. And they came in with like all these documents and all these like crazy resumes to show. And you're like, no, I just want to, like, those things are great, but you as a person is what matters, because that's what we're hiring. And so I've seen it transition and sprinkled through, like, not just focusing on, the stats and whatnot, but looking at the big picture, I think is a big thing that I've seen dyslexia give to you as a gift,
Yeah,
So,
I think that, there's so many things we all grow up with, different situations that help mold us. And I think that, for me, I think humor, you got to have humor. You just be really frustrated with yourself. Not that, I'm not trying to get better at things, but, I look back at some things like, I was so proud of myself. I had a beautiful 20-inch Walker Turner bandsaw, and I made all these letters. I made this sign. It took me a couple of weeks. God, it was a beautiful sign, and I put it up, and I had it up on the building. We were right on with 6 lanes of traffic going by in Dela Cruz. And I didn't know, but I guess it turns out that when you spell the word we were selling a lot of helium balloons, and I guess I put a few too many O's in balloon. And, so I had the sign up there for like 3 weeks. I had no idea that I had this huge banner. I'm so proud of myself. We had that up there, and because we sold a lot of helium and a lot of balloons. And then one day somebody walked in and said, "Hey, you do know you've got your sign misspelt up there?" I'm like, no. Yeah, sure enough, we did. We ended up being known to the place, but when you go down the street, they're right where that sign is misspelt at. We got a great notoriety because everybody knew where the sign was spelt at. We finally took it down and redid it. Yeah.
and then you end up getting your MBA from UC Berkeley.
Yeah. I did do that, and that was fascinating because I went back after years of doing things right and maybe wrong, and went and then found out what I was doing right and found out what I was doing wrong. So it was pretty cool. That was a great experience. And you guys were younger at that time, and actually I started that, I think, right after I started the business. Yeah. It was a busy time.
Yeah,
and a lot of great learning. I mean, it was it's like the gas distributorships. One of the things I love about the gas distributors is talking to the folks and the owners and the managers and the folks in the fill plants and all that. It's just fascinating to have those conversations because you're always learning something and you're seeing a viewpoint and ideas, the mechanical ingenious or the management of how they do things and how they structure themselves. It's the same kind of thing. It's a learning. It's just fantastic.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want us to touch on as far as like what you were talking about, like past work experience?
Well, I'll ask you this question. So Marie, what motivates you and makes you excited to come to work each day?
Okay.
You may not be excited every single day, but I mean, what are the things that do make you excited to want to come to work?
I've given this a lot of thought, and I love that every employee at Ratermann, again, is accountable for themselves and works in a team mentality, and also has the same spirit of looking at the potential of developing new tools or new items or doing new processes to help our customers. And that comes from the culture that you have helped create. And I report directly to you, unlike Mary, who reports directly to Brent. And I love that I can come with any idea and it will be heard. And that you give us the opportunity to, let's see a mock-up of that idea. Let's try it. Why not? I love that part of it. And that's what keeps me really motivated. When I'm unmotivated is when I'm overwhelmed, but that's on me to figure out. But yeah, I think I used to take this for granted, and very appreciative, especially now during what difficult times these are, to just be in a place where your voice is heard and new ideas are not shut down. So
yeah, I think that's a big one. It's interesting we say that. I reflect on that. It is. I think it's so important to be able to give ideas and thoughts, and also it allows when it may be. There could be another viewpoint that's not necessarily clear to somebody, and that also helps them grow and develop by understanding, well, that sounds like a good idea, but here's some of the things to think about that maybe haven't been, a different side to it, which is how we all grow and develop, right? And then it becomes not just a person's idea and what they want, but it becomes what's the overall picture, what it should be.
Yeah, like a team mentality. And I think you're right. When I first started at Ratermann, well, not when I first started, but when I became more in a position of like, you know, in the marketing side of it, it was always, you don't know what you don't know. So go to other people that have experience and see what the other side of this choice is. It's not just always, you know, rainbows and butterflies. And that's been really good for me to understand, and has, I think, like you've brought up several times, like no one can take the knowledge that you gain, and knowledge comes from experience, and knowledge comes from like hearing other people's experience. So yeah, I'm very fortunate that in my role, I've been able to gain a lot of knowledge from a lot of great people in a short amount of time. So, I mean, I say short amount of time, it's been years, but still.
Well, and you know, you bring up a really good point, and you have to also be an open-minded person willing to do it. And you've had a great attitude to want to learn and ask questions, because some people don't, you know, it's hard to put their ego checked at the door, right? And say, I don't know these things, or I'm going to get input. And sometimes you could feel like you're asking a lot of questions. People are going to think less of you, or that you don't have a lot of value, right? But really, people then most of the time will find themselves saying, the right people will say, wow, that person wants to understand something, learn. And that's actually exciting for them. It's one of the things that excites me, is working with people when they want to learn and grow and develop. So it actually becomes a real plus for you. And I think that one of the things that you've done has been open-minded to that and allowed yourself to have that experience.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Well, Mary, what is the thing that makes you come to work and say, man, this is going to be a great day? I'm excited.
Well, you know, it sounds really corny. And anyway, it sounds corny, but I would say it's the people. Not only like obviously my coworkers and everybody at Ratermann, but it's also the customers. Like I really, truly enjoy building those relationships and getting to know people. Sometimes in my role, you know, I don't necessarily get to interact face to face, but it's been kind of fun, especially in the past year or so, going to more shows and actually putting a face to a name, you know, that maybe I've kind of been communicating with over the years. But I really like building those relationships, but then also just like growing and the growth opportunities that have been presented more just for myself as well. Like I've learned a whole lot because my role has grown with, especially with printing and labels and where this department's really kind of gone when I first started in more of a career position. It's completely different. And I think we all had hopes it would maybe go the direction it has, but no one necessarily knew that's what it was going to become. So it's been really fun to kind of be at the front of that line and kind of, you know, you have different challenges and obstacles, obviously, in that growth, but it's really helped me grow as a person, be able to actually tangibly see something. I mean, now we have our whole, you know, production team and the full capabilities that we can do. It's just amazing. And it's just been so much fun to see that grow, get over any kind of hurdle that kind of comes up, but then also be able to provide our customers as well as the organization just some great solutions and like great products, and like feel really good that like we ourselves like got there. You know, it wasn't just something like, oh, here you go, like dropped in someone's lap or kind of a done deal.
Yeah.
It's been really fun to actually like take the journey of that and now have something to show for it. So
and you know, and to touch on that, you know, for me, you know, as you earned your way, you grew and you took charge and you developed yourself. And then ultimately, you now have P&L, you know, responsibility for that department and the production of all the folks. And, you know, we got to make money, you know, but we also have to do production. We got to get things out. We got to get them out and make, you know, make our delivery dates and all the things you have to do running a business, right? And so one of the things I remember a number of years back, I was excited about the fact that you were going to fly. You know, I'm in Northern California. You were flying back to Nashville to the production department. And you're going back there. I thought, yeah, this is a great time. I'll go back there, maybe meet up with you and all that. I decided not to. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. Mary's on her own. I wanted to go there, and I was really proud of you because you're going there and doing your thing. And I'm thinking, this is pretty cool, right? You're running it. You're running it. And you're running it well, and you're growing it and putting the focus to it. I would have loved to be able to see you and spend a couple of days down there with you, but it was still the right decision. Maybe another time we'll meet up down there together.
Yeah, hopefully soon.
Yeah, I don't know. the travel these days, that might be a while.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, those are interesting points of what's motivating. And I think it comes back to the same thing. I think people want to grow in the same way you're managing the people. Both of you guys are managing people that work under you. How do they feel and how they come into work and are they excited? And are you
Right.
taking the same principles and applying that for the people working for you?
Right. I know that's been kind of like a fun challenge because it's like, I want people to feel good and, not only the work that they do, but that they also are excited, and really see the growth there, not only now and like where they've come to, but also in the future and kind of keep that snowballing. So it's been fun. So
yeah. Well, good.
George.
Yes, Mary. Yeah. No. Hey, let's talk about that for a moment. So that's a great point. At work, you always got to be George, right? And you got to be Mary, and you got to be Marie.
Well, if I can go into why I have, it's become a joke, but why I have 3 names, or people might know me by 3 different names. For a long time, I remember when I was much younger, yeah, obviously you're very proud, right, that you have your daughters working with you and everything. And I was very proud, but it was very much like, you shouldn't get special treatment just because of your last name. You really should earn everything to which you do. And, just if you are somewhere else, you need to learn and grow because of who you are and the experiences that you have as yourself. Right. Not just because of the last name. So I just remember when at younger and working in the company, I always went by my middle name as kind of my pseudo.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Mary. Yeah. So, and I kept that up forever, just because, especially when I came back after a few years after college and things, I was like, well, again, I'll just pick up and go with Mary O'Day and it'll be fine moving forward. But then I got married, so then I became Mary Carter. But then people started to realize, oh, you're George's daughter, so you're Mary Ratermann. And so then it just became a whole bubble of confusion of like, who are you? So, but I thought it was a great lesson, especially being younger, to really, be confident in who you were as a person and just carve out your own identity for that, and grow. So I think that was something very important, but still it should always be as well, like, well, you're at work, you need to be professional. So it's George. I'm not your dad. I'm George. And it helped also kind of put those, lanes of like, okay, we're in work mode. Okay, we're in family mode, because it's easy to kind of blur lines and everything. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it is, and one of my proudest moments, you might be like, you made a big score in the game playing soccer or something like that. But actually, one of my proudest moments was the fact that one day somebody walked up to me, and they'd been working for us for 6 months. And one day somebody walked up to me, and I knew they worked with you, and they had great admiration for you and how they worked with you and all that. And they came up to me like 6 months later, and they said, "Why didn't you tell me that was your daughter? I had no idea." Right? Well, think about that. Think about how professional you have to be and how well you must be handling yourself. That 6 months later, somebody doesn't think that you're my daughter, right? They think you're a coworker, and that you're doing your job and handling things. They have a relationship with you, and did not realize, because we called you Mary O'Day, that you're my daughter. And I'm like, and I was so proud. Like, gosh, look at that! Isn't that great that this person really valued and liked that person, but having no idea that was great. So that was a great compliment to you.
Yeah, but anyway, George,
yes.
What kind of experiences do you draw on or have shaped kind of how you conduct business, or kind of, I guess, what experiences do you draw on when in your business right now? Yeah,
and that I got to tell you, I find it fascinating, the things that happen in our lives. I think a lot of us have things happen to us when we're younger, and they really maybe make a big impact on us. Maybe because it's also we make some of our biggest mistakes and look back at it. But I had a number of things that did. I had a revelation once in South Carolina. I loved animals, and I used to raise rabbits, and I love raising rabbits. And then I had a couple pens that my dad built for me, and we built together, and it was great. I had these rabbits, so I was up to like 30, 40 rabbits. I had quite a few rabbits. But one of the things I had to do was be able to pay for the food for the rabbits. So I had to face a really tough decision to start selling some of my rabbits. And I didn't really at that time quite believe in the fact that a rabbit should get bought and then go home and get eaten that same day. So that was going to have a hard concept for me. So I was kind of realizing some people were coming over to look at the rabbits. We put a little ad in one of the penny magazines or something, and people come over to want to get rabbits. And then I started realizing some people wanted to buy these rabbits. They're looking at them for how much they weighed and not for the kind of nice rabbit they were. And that was kind of concerning. So I sort of kind of said, okay, I'm not really selling rabbits now for food. But I had, when I started selling my rabbits, to get to the point, I had to separate my rabbits out because I had a few of them, I had them all named, and then they had other offspring and stuff. So I really didn't want people buying those rabbits because I had, would it be Thumper or whatever his name might be? I had him in another pen. So I moved them in another pen. There's probably about 6 or 7 in there, and there's like 30 in the other pen. And you know what? Everybody came up, they'd say, well, that's great in the price on these, but what about the ones over there? And I'm like, oh, those aren't really for sale. And at the moment, it didn't make a lot of, the total impact was the fact, but nobody wanted to buy the ones in the pen with the 30 rabbits. They wanted to buy the 6 over here that I had named, and I didn't want to necessarily give those up, right? So people started offering more money than what these were to buy those. I'm thinking, well, that's interesting. So what it really taught me, though, is there is all rabbits aren't the same, right? And so there was a reason they were in there, because they were like my favorite rabbits, or they're maybe bigger or whatever. Then they did differentiate themselves. So it is something to kind of like going, people are making decisions based on more than just the fact that it's a rabbit or a pet. There's many, you can go pretty deep in this analogy if you wanted to, but there's many, many more things going on there other than just buying a rabbit. So anyways, I did sell some rabbits, and I started figuring out I should have 3 pens, which is my lower cost rabbits, my mid-price rabbits, and truly the rabbits were never going to get sold, So I did do a segmentation of my rabbits, and then all. I think from there I had some experiences when I was trying there was a recession going on in the late 70s. Couldn't get a job anywhere. I was trying to get a job in construction. I was trying to get a job I could do a lot of work because I was in high school. I was football season during the summer. I wanted to do something really got a lot of energy and work to be able to be in good shape for football. I was helping my dad out some at nights and on weekends, but I went, and after I decided to put an ad in there to do hauling trash, I couldn't get a job in construction. I'd show up at job sites, and there was nothing there. So I did this job, and I ended up calling up this little penny. There was a magazine at the time called Potpourri. You could pick different geographies. It had 18 geographies. I said, I'll do all 18 geographies. Wasn't that much money in each geography, but it added up. And I only had like $100 in my checking account. And I think it was $84 for all those ads. I might have gone a little overboard. And boy, I was like, I hope this works out. Well, I had a truck, so I called it Trash Rat Hauling. And the reason I did this is San Jose at the time had a limited amount of trash. It was like 2 trash cans was it. Everybody had this extra trash in their backyard. We did too. So I thought there might be an opportunity there. I thought, well, I'll just haul trash and maybe take care of that opportunity. Well, it ended up being very, very successful. And it was so successful, I ended up being like a week and a half out to be able to even to get to all the jobs. And so I had a little tape recorder, and I just tell people, leave me your information and all that. And these are the days I have open. Some would just book it, and then others I'd call them back in the evening when I got back. There wasn't cell phones, so we didn't have any of that stuff. Anyways, I do these jobs. Well, I started learning a lot on the trash hauling. And what I learned on the trash hauling is nobody likes to pay to get dirt hauled away. Now, that sounds funny to say that, but think about it. And this comes back to business, right? Dirt is heavy. Dirt is 1 shovel at a time on your truck, 1 shovel at a time off your truck. Most amount of time, the heaviest product, and people don't want to pay to get dirt hauled away. For some reason, there's a psychological thing, but it's dirt. Why am I paying you all this? Why would I pay so much money to get dirt hauled away? And so I learned a lot from that, one of which was I would probably never, ever be able to please somebody that wanted dirt hauled away, at least the clients I was going to. I finally decided I don't do dirt. It's not my forte because it wasn't my, I don't have the right equipment. I don't have a dump truck, all that stuff. So anyways, I learned a lot from that. And then I started learning the fact that I did jobs where I would bid a whole job. And then, I hoped it was 3 loads of the dump, but it might have been 4 loads, And so that was a real experience learning and that the outcome of my actions. I got the sale, but now what, right? What's that going to entail? And I can move forward and tell you I had a situation when we first were in business in Santa Clara. We didn't have a forklift. And I sold a pallet of MIG wire. I was so excited. I sold a pallet of MIG wire. I didn't normally sell pallets of MIG wire. I sold a pallet of MIG wire. I was probably about 19 or 20. And that meant that when the truck from Viking Freight came to drop it off to us, somebody called ahead to a customer and said, hey, when George comes by, let him know that he needs to come back and unload a truck. I drove back, and I had to unload, I don't know, there's probably 40 rolls on a truck. I had to unload it to the back of the tailgate, and then for the tailgate, they didn't have a drop tailgate. They just had the back. I had to unload that on the ground, and then I went and made more sales calls, came back, had to put them all in a cart, bring them all in a warehouse. Then in the morning, I had to put them all back out, hand load them back on a truck, then drive it to a customer. And then when I got to the customer, hope they had a forklift. Thank gosh they had a forklift. So what I bring that up is it seems funny, but I related back to when I hauled trash. You looked at the value of what that I think the wire was at 8% margin. That was a lot of work for 8% margin. Not to mean I don't want to do that hard work, but it just brings a relevance of when you run a business. What does it entail to do it? What's the cost, and how do you Now, of course, I could say we ended up very much putting on our wish list buying a forklift. That changed everything. That made a big difference, And it was a used forklift, but it was still a forklift. I don't think anybody heard me stop talking about the fact that we had a new forklift for probably 5 weeks. Because anybody that wanted to get near me, I told them about the used forklift. I'm like, well, we have a forklift now. That changed my life, So anyways. But I think that, for me, I had different experiences that I drew upon. And I think you got to be looking for the opportunity when, they're there, but I think you have to look at those opportunities of how they apply and how you can apply them to something else you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. No, that was just a lot to. Thank you.
So, just so you know, the whole premise is all about hauling trash, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'll also tell you, my parents were great. I came back on 4th of July. I had this great opportunity. This guy said, "I'll pay you this much money if you get it all out of here tonight." I said, "I think it's a couple trips to the dump." The dump was closed because it was 4th of July. And he goes, "I got a big pool party coming to my house. I got to get this out of here." And I said, "Okay, I'll tell you what. I'll do my best. I'll have to break it down and take a lot more labor." I broke it down. He had an old toilet. He had all kinds of old clippings that smelled. Gosh, it smelled bad. I mean, this truck, it was so much stuff. I actually, on the cab of the truck, had to take a rope and strap the toilet on the cab of the truck. I had the toilet on the top, all truck full. I couldn't open up my doors because of the fact I had this rope going through to hold that. But he told me I had to get everything out of there, and if I did, I get a tip, and I got a tip. So it's getting near dusk. The fireworks are about ready to start taking off. Everybody's kind of coming out to look around, and here I come driving down to park in front of our house, and I got this truck with nothing but trash. Can't go to the dump. And I got this toilet up there, and I got a rope, and I can't get out of my own truck. I have to get out the window and try to get out the window to get out of the own truck. And I was making about 6 or 7 steps to the house, and then all of a sudden I realized, wow, I thought I left the bad smell back at his house where all this stuff had been, all the clippings that had gotten ripe in the sun. It was still on my truck. And I'm watching neighbors about 5 houses down, and watching neighbors come out and covering their noses. And I now realize I've shown up for 4th of July with this smelly truck that's wafting down the street while everybody's coming out to watch fireworks. Anyways, I had very understanding parents.
I do also just want to clarify, you were like 19 at the time when you started this, right? 18?
No, I was in high school, so 17. I was 17, 18.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
I will also tell you, it's not a good girl getter either. I mean, the guy that hauls trash smells bad, truck full of trash. If you didn't get to the dump in time, it was not a good date night. I could tell you that.
Well, didn't you pick Mom up in that truck after?
You know what? Date? I tell you what, it was a good tell, right? She was willing to go out with me, so she went out with me, and you're right, and that was a good. She wasn't all about the fancy car.
Yes. I think that got passed on to Mary and I. But yeah, we were like sitting there expecting for our first day ever to pull up in a dumpster truck
with the toilet on top.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what's wrong with this? It doesn't seem good. Yeah. Well.
But I just want to qualify. I did not take her out with the toilet on the truck. I had gone to the dump. But that truck, the funny part about that truck, we're going somewhere. Your mom was in there the first time with me, and she goes, "Well, do you know how to get there?" I said, "I absolutely know where we're going. Absolutely." She goes, "Well, you keep making left turns." I said, "Well, yeah, I need to make left turns to get there." And she goes, well, why don't you make a right turn? It'd be much quicker. I said, well, if I make a right turn, I had a gas tank in the back of my seat. That's the old 1970 Dodge truck. And so the way the gas tank was right behind your seat, and a little pipe came in that you fill the gas tank. So if you made a right-hand turn, if you were over half a tank, if you made a right-hand turn, the gas would slosh up and spill out inside the cab, and then you smelled gas. It smelled really, really bad. So I had to make left turns to wherever we're going to go. Maybe every once in a while I make a right turn if I had to, but then you try to do that at the end so you didn't have to smell the gas the whole trip. Yeah.
Take the right turns for the way back from the date. Oh man, you really filled up for that date.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's too good. Well, this was really fun for me, and I'm really happy that this was requested for us to do.
Who requested this to be done, by the way?
Some people.
Oh, okay.
Many people.
I'll say this. If you're a father and you're a business guy, it doesn't get much better than this to be able to sit there and have a conversation with your daughters and talk about business and talk about family and also I'm thrilled. I'm glad. I didn't know what today would be about totally, but I'm glad we did it, and I really really enjoyed it myself, and I hope the listeners will enjoy it. I don't know if it will be of total interest, but I hope it will be. But I'm just really proud of both of you guys and how you handle yourself in work and how you are as people. And so for me, it's just been a joy to be able to do this today together.
Thanks, Dad. / George.
I know.
No, but this is great. I'm super happy we did this. And again, I loved your statement of being thankful to our employees and our customers. They're all amazing. So yeah,
absolutely.
And feel very, very blessed that we have the opportunity to work at such a great company that also happens to be in our family. So
yeah,
I know.
We're building that.
and these are difficult times right now. But the future's bright because we're working on what we can do and what we can do in the future, and we're working on many many things at Ryder Manufacturing as not just as a company but also as people. And so when we look at that from a futuristic perspective, we got a lot of exciting things we're going to be doing and a lot of exciting things we're doing together, as well as the fantastic people we have at our company that we work with.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. It's going to be like as I say, it's a difficult time right now for all of us because we're in a spot where it's a little hard to see the future. It doesn't look so great right now. But, this is a short period of time. And, these things, they all create opportunities in all areas that we all grow and develop and look at things a little differently. And so I think we have to take from this what we can take from it. But I do think that we've got the plans that we've laid out as a company and the plans we've laid out for our future. They might be slightly delayed and be a little more difficult to get there, but we're going to get there, and it's going to be a fantastic opportunity as we're all work and grow together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's definitely given us the opportunity, just even as a company, to get even closer. Because I feel like everybody's family, but especially when everyone's trying to get through something that's difficult and unique, like right now. You just grow stronger.
Yeah, it is, and even the relationship with customers, it's the same way, right? We're all working to get to the same place together, and we're very fortunate to have such wonderful customers and relationships with customers for that long-term perspective.